Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're running a couple minutes behind time, so sorry, but thanks so much for joining the East Asia Regional Tiger Global Case Competition Meet Your Judges. We will begin in just a couple of minutes. Please say hi here in the chat box and tell us where that you're joining us from, right here in the chat box.
Pakistan, Australia, Taiwan, Japan,
Very exciting.
South Korea, Kazakhstan, amazing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, woo! Hong Kong, Japan.
Awesome. We have lots of participants joining in from many different countries in East Asia. We're really excited. Let's get started. Please continue to use the chat box to speak with us. I'm your host for today. My name is Sing and I'm based in Hong Kong for Crimson Education. I work with families who are based in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area to access personalized education services. And a little bit about myself, I'm Singaporean, so I was born and I grew up in Singapore. I went to university at Yale in the US before I started my career in management consulting and economic consulting. So that was kind of I was in the business sphere of things before I moved over into the education sector with Crimson Education. So that's just a little bit about myself. I'm super excited to introduce to you today your three very awesome East Asia round judges for the Tiger Global Case Competition. Let me just pull up their awesome resumes on the screen right now. And then you'll be able to ask them questions in the chat box and say hi. First up, I'd like to introduce Chris. Chris, can you tell us a little bit whether you're joining us from Shanghai or elsewhere in the world right now?
Yeah, of course. I'm joining from Shanghai, and hi everyone. It's nice to be here, and it's an honor to be part of the TGCC, and looking forward to the case competition later.
Wonderful. Chris, have you ever been a participant of a case competition when you were a student?
I've actually worked for management consulting industry before, so I've done a lot of case interview then, so I know what a case is like, but not case competition, and for sure not like a virtual case competition.
That's wonderful. Well, a little bit more about Chris, his impressive resume. He's a venture investor right now at SoftBank China Venture Capital. Previously, Chris was the chief of staff to the CEO at Video Plus Plus, which is an AI technology company, venture backed by Alibaba. Chris himself graduated from Stanford GSB, which with an MBA degree, as well as Harvard University with a Master of Science degree and Shanghai Jiao Tong University with a Bachelor of Science degree. He also brings perspectives from his management consulting experience working at McKinsey as an MBA summer associate. So everybody say hi to Chris.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Chris.
And next up, I'd love to introduce Peter. Peter, hi.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Good to see you guys. Great to be
right
here.
Now or
looking forward to. I am. I'm in Hong Kong right now, and I've actually been in Hong Kong working from home since Chinese New Year, thanks to all of the wondrous things that are going on in the world around us.
That's amazing. I'm based in Hong Kong as well, and I moved here just a month ago to a very different world. But it's been very interesting, hasn't it, this year?
Yes, actually, we haven't caught up yet, actually, but I'm looking forward to showing you around the city and potentially some of the things that you can do when you actually meet people in person as opposed to over Zoom.
I look forward to that. That seems like such a long ago time and just a luxury to be able to meet up. We've got to do that at some point. I'd love to introduce a little bit more about Peter. Peter is a high-tech entrepreneur, CEO, coach, as well as investor. With more than 20 years of experience building multi-billion-dollar businesses in Asia. Right now, Peter is the head of business model innovation at global investment bank HSBC. Peter brings a world-class understanding of innovation and growth across more than 40 countries, and he's the creator of the Hong Kong-based corporate innovation accelerators that launched 75 new high-technology startups into funding rounds across multiple industries. Peter, with such an impressive resume, have you ever taken part in a business case competition before yourself?
Yes, I have. I'm a huge believer in case or the case approach. When you compare it to textbook learning versus or even just going out there and trying to do your own thing, I believe that case is a huge way of accelerating your knowledge and learning of actually how to solve a problem. So I believe in case. I love case. I've been part of case competitions, and I've actually judged and run case competitions before in the past, and this is a very exciting thing for all the participants to be part of. So
that's amazing. Well, you may be our most veteran judge in terms of judging cases here then in a case competition setting. So attendees, if you're listening, maybe Peter is the one that you need to win over as you do your cases over the next week. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. I'd love to move on and introduce George, our third East Asia regional round judge here. George, say hi to our audience.
Hey, everyone. Great to be here. Just as Chris said, it's an honor. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, George. Can you tell us where you're joining us from today?
Yeah, sure. I'm calling from San Francisco, United States. Although I'm in the US, but I'm originally from Russia. That's why I'm kind of like, have some relationship to this region. So yeah, looking forward to it once again.
And that's why you wanted to be a judge for the East Asia regional round of this competition, right? Which is also the best regional round.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Wonderful. We really appreciate you joining us, especially since it's not even 5 a.m. in San Francisco right now.
Yeah, it's all good.
Awesome. I'd love to introduce more about George. George brings us extensive knowledge in finance, portfolio management, and strategy. George is currently working at JP Morgan in San Francisco in the technology practice, and he advises technology companies in Silicon Valley. George is also an alumnus of Stanford University, where he received his MBA and Master of Science. Before going to Stanford, George lived in Moscow, Russia, and worked for Metalo Invest, which is a leading global mining corporation. George, have you ever taken part in a case competition yourself?
Actually, yes. Once, when I was a student at Moscow State University, for those from CIS region, they'll be familiar with that university. It was a competition for McKinsey and Company. We made it through the first round, and then we failed successfully. So it was a very actually interesting experience. So I think a lot of students who are, on this competition, that you're going to get a tremendous experience working with your teammates, cracking the case, and it's going to help you a lot in the future. So yeah, it was helpful for me at least. Yeah. Anyway, that's
awesome. That's wonderful. I mean, Peter, Chris, and George, we have three very veteran, experienced business people who are judging your cases here today. And I think I was, hoping to catch out somebody who didn't take part in a case competition before, and for which this is kind of, their first time directly as a judge, going straight that way. But everyone is really, really experienced. Without further ado, I'd like to just kind of ask you two questions that we prepared ahead of time. And at this point, I'd love to invite the audience, everyone who's attending, please leave your questions in the chat box, and there will be time towards the end where we can ask any specific judge, if you specify, or just all the judges in general, your own questions, okay? So leave your questions here in the chat box. The first question is for Peter. Peter, what is the most important skill or lesson that you hope students will learn during the Tiger Global Case Competition?
Well, look, I think this is a great question. I think that the most important thing about case is that it's really about time management. It's really about understanding a situation really, really quickly, really, really thoroughly, not jumping to a conclusion, thinking through all the different potential elements and coming up with a really, really clear presentation of your solution. And that sounds simple, but the reason I love case so much is because the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like an iterative process, and you get to the process of understanding and analyzing a situation. You get better and better and better the more times you do it. The process of coming up with a solution, you get better and better and better the more times you do it. So I really hope that everybody learns. If this is your first case competition, or if this is the first time you've done it, that this is the beginning of a very long journey, that you will probably learn some skills in this competition that you'll use forever. And so that process of just iterating, learning and processing the situation, coming up with a solution is what I'd say is the best learning experience.
Awesome. And so for our participants who are doing this for the first time, it's going to be the first time in a long road of getting better, right? And sharpening their business skills.
100%. And this process never ends. Don't think that this is just about now. This is not a transaction. This is not about a competition. You are learning skills now that you're going to apply in your 3rd job, your 10th job, your 100th job. And this is really what it's all about. It's about the passion of understanding how to decode, how to come up with something interesting, how to come up with something that's unique, and then executing it. And really, where we win is when we execute perfectly. That's what this is all about.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. The second question is for Chris, and we're going to switch tracks a little bit. Chris, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is just starting out in their careers?
Yeah, that's definitely a great question. I also wish someone actually answered that question before I started my career myself. But I think like one thing that I learned in my career is that being a team player is very important. And especially in case competition like this, like you also are working in teams. And I think having such a mindset is especially important for young people who has a very prestigious educational background. Because when you're in a school environment, like a lot of people will feel like I'm like the star in the classroom, and you got a lot of attention from the teachers, like from the other students, and even sometimes from the headmasters. But after you get into the first job in your career, no matter it's like management consulting, investment banking, or like maybe big corporates, you actually start from the very bottom end of the pyramid, just to be honest with you. So like that's actually like very important to adjust the mindset, to always think what you can bring to the team, and also what you can bring to the table, to the company. And that's something I think if someone can adjust that mindset very quick and smoothing early in their career, they also will be able to thrive in the long run. So that will be something I would love to like share with everyone here.
Wonderful. And I think it's really important to always have that hunger and drive to learn.
Yeah, totally.
It's a career lifelong skill. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Our third question is for George. George, we're very curious as to how and why did you choose the career path that you're currently on?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Like many years ago, I was dreaming of becoming a surgeon, and I don't even know how I ended up, working in finance. But for me, it was a very long journey of understanding, what I like doing the most. And I figured it out at the business school that first of all, I love finance, and then I want to be at the forefront of the change. That's why I'm kind of like, in San Francisco right now, working for one of the leading banks, advising companies in the Silicon Valley. And it's a very exciting thing to be at and have experience in, because you see like Google, Apple, and what they're dealing with, and kind of like the solutions you propose to them. It gives you a lot of knowledge that you can take with you forward, and just see it all, do it all. So I guess that's kind of like I ended up here. It's just an exciting place to be, where the change is happening.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a very challenging and rewarding career.
Yeah, it has its own ups and downs, but it's all good. Yes.
Yeah. Well, at this point, we have some questions coming in from the audience. They're kind of broadly split into two types. The first is, pretty technical questions about the case and your opinions on what is a good idea, what is a good case presentation. And another one is more sort of your own career and life experience, just, you know, further probing into what you've said. What kinds of questions would you like to take today, given our limited time? Peter, maybe I'll ask you one that was quite relevant to your sharing.
Oh, and look, I've been reading through some of the questions. Some of them are about like, what is a good case? How do you define a clear presentation? What's well, difficult to decide on the base idea. Let me take this one question here, which is I think really important. And it's really about the team, and it's about when you get. So one of the most important things that you need to develop when you are coming up with a solution for a really challenging problem is that you start to you need to start to learn to, instead of working independently, you need to start leveraging the superpowers of your team members. And one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is, as you're starting to think about these types of these cases, try to understand the superpowers that you have and the superpowers that your team members have, and bring them all together to come up with an amazing solution for the case. Because one of the things that you need to learn once you move into what we call the real world is how you can not only use your own expertise, but how you can use the expertise of others to create something that is exponentially better than what you could create by yourself. And so please try to not only come up with great solutions yourself, but leverage the power of your teammates. Understand what you do well and what your other teammates do well, and use those powers really, really powerfully to develop a solution that is exponentially better than what you can come up with.
Awesome. Do our other judges have any responses to add to that? No? Let me ask one that I think is quite interesting from Daphne. Can you, how do you apply the skills that you learned from case competition to real life? Can you provide any examples from your own career?
Chris, why don't you take that?
Sure. I actually think that case in many ways is more like a learned mindset of solving problems. How do you break it down and gradually use data to test your hypothesis so that you can prioritize the time you spend to solving the problem? So this is actually not only a skill that I use in my previous management consulting work, but also currently when I'm doing like venture investing, we also use that mindset a lot to evaluate a company and seeing whether some of our like judgment has been right or wrong, to test it with data, test it with interview with different people in the industry. So I actually think that having like a proposed maybe assumption or hypothesis in your mind, and be creative on collecting your data and gradually prioritizing your time for solving the problem and finding the answer in the end has been like universally applicable no matter what kind of job you will do in your career.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Indeed, indeed. That's a great point. Let's go on into the second round of prepared questions, and then we'll take more audience questions. So please continue to chat us in the chat box your questions. These are really, really interesting ones. The next question is for Peter once again. What do you like the most about your job? And maybe you can kick off by summarizing briefly what you currently do, and then tell us what you love the most about it.
Absolutely. So I've got like a really interesting role. My role is I lead innovation for the wealth and personal banking component of one of the world's largest banks in the world. And and what that means is, how do I look into the trends that are changing the way retail banking is being, I guess, I guess, influenced by fintech, or influenced by technology companies, influenced by easier modes of engagement like mobile phones. And what are the opportunities that we have to combine changing user behaviors with changing business models with changing technologies? So the favorite part of my job is trying to find the intersection between new technology companies that are solving real consumer problems in ways that the bank can actually make profitable business out of. And the interesting thing about that is that even though we feel like we live in a very global world today, the reality is that with banking is actually very local. It's very regional. It's very regulated at a country by country level. And I'm sure George can sort of attest to this, is that the banking opportunities for retail customers or commercial customers or even global customers are very different in different parts of the world. And so there's a huge amount of opportunity to provide new solutions to these customers in every different part of the world. And Asia clearly is leading this. China has been striving ahead with new technologies to reinvent the way finance has been. And it's incredible to see how that will flow on to Hong Kong and Taiwan and other parts of China, and then on to the rest of the world. And it's so the most exciting thing for me is being part of this wave of change, how technology is changing traditional businesses. And if any of you in the audience are really excited about this, it's a fascinating industry to be in. It's obviously a very lucrative business to be in. You can join it and make lots of money, but it's also something that is very important for the world, because the world needs money. The world needs an economic flow, and it's very important that there's an equality of opportunity when it comes to finance.
Wonderful. Well, we actually have the same question for Chris. Chris, why don't you share your perspective on what you do right now in your job, and what is your favorite part of it?
Yeah, of course. I'm right now working as a venture capital investor at SoftBank China. And there's several things that I really like about my current job. The first is that the job actually has a lot of autonomy that I can have, especially every day I can decide on my own schedule and meet with the company that I'm interested about. And if I really don't feel like working for the afternoon, maybe for a day, I can actually go to the gym or watch a movie like to relax, as long as like my boss do not call me at the time, or I don't have any specific task that has a clear deadline for that afternoon. But I think that's kind of like flexibility is something that I value a lot. However, this kind of situation does not mean that I can be a slacker at work, because in the end, I still need to deliver on a lot of results and also make good investment for the firm. So I think this is a great occupation for anyone who is more like a self-motivating person. And that's like a job that's usually this kind of person will thrive in. And another thing I really like about the job is the exposure to a lot of learning opportunities. Since as we see VC, we're actually dealing with innovations at the front line of like every industry. So we actually will be able to hear a lot of future trends many years before like the mass population do in the news media. So every time when we need to make investments, we also need to present that to the investment committee. So it's very frequently that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I know nothing about this industry or the company, but 3 weeks later, I need to prepare for everything that the investment committee will ask in the form like a PhD dissertation presentation. So I think this kind of very steep learning curve is something that I enjoy a lot. And also, I would encourage everyone like to consider this kind of industry if you got opportunity to join later.
I think you've made a really strong pitch for the investment industry. That sounds fascinating. Our last question is for George. Last but not least, an interesting one to finish us off. When you were a teenager, did you have a set career path in mind? And if so, did this change over time? I think previously you alluded to how you had thought you wanted to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
So walk us through that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for asking. That's a very great question. When I was in high school, like, you know, a lot of students here now, I was actually playing water polo, and I was thinking of becoming a professional water polo player. But then I understood that it's not going to be a viable career path. And I decided, all right, who I want to be. I thought and I decided I want to be a surgeon. And my parents told me, no, you're not going to be a surgeon. You're going to go to School of Economics. So I went to School of Economics where I engaged in the kind of like what we call a military program. And I decided, all right, I want to join the government forces, you know, like the government agency after finishing college. It didn't work out. Then I ended up in the private sector. So what I'm trying to say, it's not always clear path from the beginning. It always changes, and you just have to like accept it and admit it, I guess, that it's always, you know, it can change, and it's okay, I guess. Um, and don't, you know, just don't beat yourself up if something doesn't work out as you intended it to be, because at the end of the day, it's all going to work out. You know, it's all going to work out in a positive way. So that's kind of like my advice to younglings on this phone call. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the inspiring story, George, and for encouraging our attendees. We're going to leave 2 minutes or so for questions. So if you have questions for our judges, now is the time to pop them in the chat box right now. But we do have a couple that I will see if our judges have time to answer. I think there are a few attendees who are really curious as to the things that you guys, the judges, are looking for in the methods that they submit. So could you provide just, you know, 1 or 2 very broad guidelines around what makes a strong case solution?
I can talk about presentations because I saw a question about presentations. Is that okay if I talk about that?
Yeah, please go for it.
So for me personally, when I look at a presentation, it's just like a general advice. Think of a presentation as though you're presenting it to a person who's like 5 years old, who doesn't understand anything, and you present it, and he's seeing that for the first time. Again, it's just me personally, but I think it's a very powerful skill to have if you can combine such a difficult information into one beautiful presentation that even a 5-year-old kid can understand. And just walk me through the story. uh, so that would be my advice to those who are thinking of like how to structure the presentation. Just make it simple, present it as though I've never seen it before, and don't use jargon. Yeah, that's just me. I hope it helps.
Amazing. Do our other judges have anything to add to that?
I'm gonna add maybe 2 points here. I actually think that there's 2 things I would usually look for. One is that whether the presentation really has good logic for all the content there. And the second is that whether you can communicate the ideas in a very succinct and concise way. And so I would encourage everyone to maybe start with conclusion first, start with the key bullet point first, and then expand, so that you will gradually learn how to present maybe something to a person who is very busy, or like you should have a shorter attention span, so that you will be able to capture their attention.
Awesome. Awesome. I think we have time for one more question if you guys would like to take this one. William is asking, could you please talk about an interesting or even challenging case that you had to crack in the past? Or if there's nothing that you can share from your own work and careers, maybe something that you've judged before, you've seen a case solution that was very interesting or challenging to crack in some way. Anything? If there isn't,
I mean, there are lots of really challenging cases, and in fact, sometimes the best cases are not necessarily the most intellectually challenging, but they are actually the simplest. But people don't see the simple solutions, and so, you know, of the hundreds and hundreds of cases that you'll get to see when you go through these types of this type of method, you'll learn that there's more about a process, and the process is you really have to understand what is the bottleneck in the business, or what is the real problem that is facing the management team? Is it an intellectual challenge? Is it more of a management philosophy challenge? Is it an environmental challenge? Is it a technology challenge? What is the challenge that is really facing the business? And when you look at all of these different businesses, what I've found is when I look at these different companies that we get to establish, is that you get to start to understand that different companies are at different stages of development, and some of them are at stages where they are really trying to understand what's going on in the environment, and they just need knowledge. Some of them are at stages where they need to turn that knowledge into automation. Some of them are at stages where they need to turn that automation into scale. And so one of the biggest, I think, important things for you all to understand is that whichever case that you get presented with, number one, it's been solved by somebody before, and it's very, very valuable for you to look at relevant businesses that have solved those business problems before and how they solved it. And secondly, if you're going to innovate on the solution, which is what the judges are going to be looking for, how are you coming up with an innovative, interesting, and potentially, successful solution to this case, an elegant solution, so to speak. It's going to be really, really important for you to be able to very quickly understand where that company is and what solutions to apply to it. Mm-hmm. Let me pause there because I think I'm having some technical issues here.
Yeah, Peter, we may have lost you on the video feed, but we can still hear. Zoom is really good with this kind of bandwidth issues. So that was really great advice to our attendees. Anything to add, George and Chris? No? Great. If that's the case.
Peter already said a lot of great points here.
That's true. Don't give away the whole case, Peter. Thank you for sharing that. That was wonderful. At this point, we'll end the questions round for our judges. We're really excited that you were able to join us today and meet your amazing judges for the East Asia region. Let me just share my screen and go through a couple of key deadlines for this competition as a reminder. So our upcoming dates, the regional case is going to be released tomorrow at 3 p.m. China time or 4 p.m. Japan time. And then on Sunday, September 6th, developing a deck pitch is going to happen at 3 p.m. China time. On Sunday, the same day, there's going to be a live Q&A with our Chief Financial Officer, the case partner. That's going to be at 5 p.m. Saturday, the week after, September 12th, is the regional case digital submission. So please note that this is going to be your submission deadline for the regional round for your case solution. And that happens at 10 p.m. China time, 11 p.m. Japan. And then 2 days later, September 14th, on Monday, there will be 10 regional finalists that are announced. So that's a very exciting time. The 10 regional finalists will get to go on to delivering your pitch live to our judges here that you've met. So that's going to happen on Wednesday, September 16th. That's 7 a.m. Beijing time, China time. And then finally, on Saturday, September 19th, the 10 regional finalist teams are to present to the live panel of judges. So delivering your pitch on Wednesday, September 16th is going to be a session that we're holding. And then you get to present, the 10 regional finalists will present to our 3 judges here live, starting at 4 p.m. China time. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. These are the upcoming exciting dates, and we wish you all the best. We wish that you'll have fun doing the case, and we'll see you soon. Thank you to our judges for joining us today. Thank you, everyone.
Good luck. Thanks. Good luck, everyone.
Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Take care.